The microphone is still warm from my speech when the screen behind me suddenly flashes red, as if someone had smashed a siren against the glass. On it are screenshots of internal emails from my laptop, and below them crawls a live counter of offshore transfers, resembling a cardiogram of someone else's heart. The champagne freezes in the glasses. The only sound in the hall is the air conditioner, exhaling cold, as if hiding me under a sheet of ice. I take a step to the side to cover the screens with myself, and the host opens his mouth silently, as if he had forgotten the words at his own wedding. My partner's hand slides nearby. He takes the microphone and, without looking at me, says to the cameras, which are greedily pulling closer, "Today we must talk about the truth, about the money that has disappeared, about our irreplaceable, our undeniably generous benefactor." I don't immediately understand that the name he says after the pause is mine, because they say it as if they were burying me in the ground without asking for my consent. In the front row, my fiancée adjusts her earring, and this microscopic movement cuts me more sharply than the headlines. She looks not at me, but at the numbers behind her, as if at paintings from a crime museum. The phone vibrates in my pocket. The lawyer writes that it's better not to speak, it's better to wait, it's better to breathe evenly. And I catch myself thinking ridiculously that I've never learned to breathe. I've only learned to count, to buy silence, to gather shadows. "Did you know?" Someone whispers from behind the stage, and this whisper becomes a spotlight for me. I know every line of the agreements. I know the smell of fresh skin in negotiations, where it's decided who will be God for a week and who will become ashes. I know the temperature of the offices where the air thins before the signature, but I don't know who pressed this button now, why internal letters with generous emojis and dry formulas are leaking onto the screen like blood from a bandaged artery. For a second, I see my own childhood photo in the corner of the slide, the same me, in a worn jacket, with eyes that don't yet understand the difference between a gift and a debt. And it seems to me that it was he, the little one, who escaped from my past and put me under this light to hear the answer. "Say something," my partner hisses, still smiling. "You can talk, we all know that." I look at the hall and think that wealth is not about the number of zeros. It's about the number of people who pretend not to know you when the light becomes unbearably bright. I nod to the equipment, asking for sound. But instead of words, there is a bitter metal in my throat, like a coin with which they are going to pay me for everything. For silence, for success, for what I called the truth while it bypassed me. And I understand that now, for the first time in my life, I cannot buy my way off the stage. I put the microphone on the floor, as carefully as if I were returning someone else's child to its mother, and in the silence I hear only my name falling. Heavy, unnecessary, public. The next morning, my face was everywhere, on screens, in feeds, in memes that rained down like hail on my own backyard. I watched my name being cut into quotes, journalists measuring the degree of my decline. People who only yesterday kissed my hand at meetings now refuse even to take a photo together. The phone is silent, but this silence is not about peace. It's the vacuum in which all life perishes. I haven't slept for the second day. In the mirror, it's not me, but the silhouette of a man who once believed that control was freedom. My partner, the same one who stood on stage, immediately filed a statement. "We too have become victims of fraud." His lawyers skillfully play the victim card, and they paint me as the devil who spent years building an empire on lies. But I know, half of the transactions that went through our accounts had two signatures, his and mine. He was the first to click save the screenshot, and now he has a weapon. When I entered my office, the security guard didn't look up. The door to the office was locked. Opening it with my own key, I saw the safe was open, the documents were gone. On the table was a flash drive with a short video. Me, a little drunk, telling a journalist at a party that success is just beautifully disguised chaos. Someone had filmed it. Someone had been waiting for years to use it. "You destroyed yourself," said a voice in my head. "You just haven't realized it yet." In the evening, I went to my father's. The old man lived alone, in a dacha near the forest. We hadn't seen each other for 2 years. He opened it silently, but his eyes said it all. Not condemnation, not pity, but some kind of quiet distance, as if between two worlds that could no longer touch. "You didn't avoid the truth," he said after a long pause, pouring tea. "You bought it, and every time it cost more, you just raised the price." What was I supposed to do? I snapped. I built, I created, I took risks. Without me, they're all worthless. Without you, they might be more honest, he replied quietly. And you're calmer. His words cut me like a blade. I went outside because I couldn't breathe. The leaves rustled in the darkness, and I realized that for the first time in years, I was scared. Not for money. For myself. For who I had become when I tried to prove that the world belongs to those who aren't afraid to break it. The next day, a letter came from the prosecutor's office, suspected of financial fraud, tax evasion, collusion with offshore structures. I sat on the floor in an empty apartment, listening to the clock ticking, as if counting the remnants of trust. And I realized, I am no longer the hero of my story. I am a shadow who has paid too much for the light. I looked at the city for the last time from the panoramic windows. It no longer shone. It seemed that even the sky had turned away so as not to see how one of those who once controlled everything could now not even control his own breathing. I hadn't left my apartment for 3 days. The phone was off, the curtains were closed, the air thick with guilt. Everything that had once filled me with strength now reeked of illusion. The gold-faced watch I'd bought in Paris after my first big deal lay on the floor next to the letter from the prosecutor's office, a symbol of how quickly time could turn against you. In the morning, I received a message from an unknown number. What you were shown is only half the story. If you want to know the rest, come. Your former ally is waiting to talk. There was no signature, only the coordinates, an abandoned hotel on the outskirts of the city. I hesitated, but something inside me, something hungry for the truth, made me go. The hotel greeted me with the smell of dust and old furniture. On the second floor, a figure in a dark coat, her face partially hidden in shadow. When she raised her head, I saw familiar eyes. Sophia, a former financier at our company. A woman I once fired because she knew too much. It's been a while since we last met, she said, sitting down opposite me. It's ironic that you're the one looking for the truth now. If you're here for revenge, I began, but she interrupted. Revenge is for those who still have a heart. All I have left are the facts. She placed a thin tablet on the table. On the screen were copies of contracts, internal reports, correspondence. I saw familiar names, accounts, signatures, but there was also a document I had never signed. My signature on fake transactions that transferred funds offshore. He did it, I whispered. My partner. Not just him, Sophia replied. The whole system is built on substitution. You were both used. You became the face, he the executor. Behind you stood those who turned even the truth into an asset. I took a deep breath. The blood was pounding in my temples. The years I had considered my own triumph turned out to be part of someone else's script. I was created and now erased. Why are you showing me this? I asked, looking her in the eye. Because I once believed in you too, she said quietly. And maybe there's still someone inside you who can stop this. She handed me a flash drive. Here's everything that proves your innocence. But if you publish this, it's not just them who will fall. Banks, foundations, people the world calls untouchables will go. They won't forgive you a second chance. I sat in silence. Outside the window, the wind was shaking the old blinds, and their every movement sounded like a warning. I felt that the choice was near. Sophia looked at me as if she knew that this choice would determine not only my fate, but the meaning of all my years. As I was leaving the hotel, the rain suddenly began. It beat on the asphalt, washing away the last traces of dust. And for the first time in a long time, I felt that perhaps all was not lost. But I also knew that now they would come for me. I sat in my car by the lake, watching the rain erase the outlines of the city, clutching a flash drive in my hand, a small black key that weighed like a sentence. Each drop on the glass reminded me of a second of my life. One when I signed my first deal, another when I betrayed someone who believed in me. But now everything came down to one thought. Either I would reveal the truth and fall for good, or I would keep quiet and live in the shadow of my own lies. I turned the ignition and drove off. At night, the city looked like a lace of nerves. The lights in the office windows pulsed like pulses on a dying patient's monitor. I stopped in front of the skyscraper that had once belonged to me. Inside, on the top floor, he was waiting, my former partner, now a public hero, a fighter for honesty. He didn't even get up when I walked in. He just smiled like a cat that had had enough. You should have disappeared quietly, he said. And you're doing a show again. I just came to get my name, I replied. He sighed, took out a cigar, and lit up. Your name is nothing anymore. It stinks. And if you think a flash drive is going to change everything, you don't understand how this world works. People don't want the truth, they want a pretty picture. And I gave it to them. And how much did you pay for my disintegration? I asked coldly. Less than you paid for your conscience, he smiled. I threw the flash drive on the table. It's got evidence. Everything. Not just about me, about you, about them, about this whole chain. I'll give it to the journalists. If you do this, he leaned closer, you'll be erased. Physically. And no one will even remember your name. Then so be it. But if I disappear, the file will be online. Sophia will take care of that. His smile disappeared. And for the first time I saw fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for the system in which he was just a cog, even though he considered himself God. We stood in silence while the wind swayed the blinds. I realized that he would never stop. He had to be broken publicly. And I did what I had been afraid to do for years. I pressed send. The files went to dozens of editorial offices at once. He rushed at me, tried to snatch the phone, but I hit him. Hard. Without anger. Just like a period in a sentence that dragged on for a lifetime. His blood fell on the documents. Symbolically, when I came out, the dawn sky cut the horizon like a scar. I knew there was no going back after this. But for the first time in many years, I breathed. Not with money, not with fear, not with fame. With air. Real, cold, alive. In the morning the headlines exploded. Financial empire destroyed. Corporate mafia exposed. Main figure missing. They were already looking for me. But I had no fear. Only peace and a strange relief. I had done what I had feared all my life. Became honest. 3 weeks had passed. I was sought in every city, at every customs office, in every database. But I was no longer someone to be found. I lived in a small house by the sea, in a country where my name meant nothing. My hair had grown, my beard hid my features, and my old sweater smelled of smoke and freedom. Every morning I would go out to the beach and watch the waves wash away the traces of the night. Sometimes it seemed that the sea knew more about me than I did. The news was full of trials. My partner was in a detention center. Sophia had disappeared. No one knew where. Part of the system had collapsed, but most of it survived, as it always did. People talked about it for weeks, then moved on to other scandals. But the truth I had let out into the world had not destroyed the world. It had only brightened it for a moment. And yet that moment had made more sense than all the years of my brilliance. One evening I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, Sophia. Tired, but alive. She sat down next to me, looking at the sea. You did something that no one would dare to do, she said. But tell me, was it worth it? I was silent for a long time. Then I answered. I don't know if it changed the world, but it definitely changed me. I realized that money is just noise that drowns out the voice of conscience. And now what? She asked. Now I just live. Without cameras, without fear, without lies. And you know, I smiled, there is also music in silence. You just have to learn to listen to it. She looked at me for a long time, as if she were seeing a person for the first time, not a name. You once said that control is freedom, she reminded me. I was wrong, I answered. Freedom is the ability to let go. The sea crashed against the rocks, and each blow seemed like a reminder. Nothing lasts forever, not even the strongest empire, not even the loudest name. That night I sat by the fire and thought that a person can lose everything, money, power, respect. But if he finds the ability to feel again, he is not dead yet. Maybe that is why I survived. And as the stars scattered across the sky, I said aloud for the first time in many years, my name is Ilya Markov. Once I owned everything. Now I own only myself. And perhaps that is what true wealth is. Somewhere in the distance, the sea echoed. And in that sound was everything. The end, the purification, and the quiet, invisible birth of a new me.